All right, here we go. We've got our fourth lesson in Unit 3, Triangle Congruence. This is our last of our shortcuts for proving triangles are congruent. In the previous lessons, we've covered side, 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 angle, side, angle, angle, side. And this is a special one. It's called HL, which stands for hypotenuse leg. So our question today is, why does HL work, but angle, side, side does not work? See, donkeys cannot make triangles, so you should never write this word anywhere in your proofs because it doesn't exist. Okay, so if you find yourself writing a word that makes you giggle, it's probably something that you're doing wrong. Now, the problem today is HL looks like it should be angle, side, side, but it's not. So our congruence theorems that we can use are side, 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 angle, side, angle, angle, side, hypotenuse leg. But you can never use angle, angle, angle. That does not work. 3 angles does not prove the triangles are congruent. And you can't use angle, side, side. That does not work. Donkeys do not make triangles. Have you ever seen a donkey make a triangle? No, you have not. At least not on purpose. So, hypotenuse leg theorem. Now, hypotenuse and leg, that comes from right triangles. That's terminology for right triangles. So we know in this one that triangles are congruent when they are right and the hypotenuse and a leg are congruent. All right, so what are we talking about here? We're talking about if I've got 2 triangles and they're both right, so these are both 90 degrees, and if we can prove the hypotenuse, and remember the hypotenuse is always the side that is not touching the 90-degree angle, so the longest side. So if I can show that the hypotenuse is the same, and the leg, which is just one of the other sides, is the same, then that proves that these 2 triangles are congruent. Now, why does this work? Because now it looks like angle, side, side, and I told you donkeys don't make triangles. So why does this work when I told you angle, side, side doesn't work? Well, you have to go back to probably 8th grade when you learned the Pythagorean theorem. In the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. All right, so you learned that a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now, c was the hypotenuse, and these were legs. So what we're saying here is there's an equation where this side squared equals this one squared plus this one squared. So if it's kind of like the third angles theorem, this is almost like the third sides theorem, that since we have an equation for the 3 sides, that if we've already got 2 of the sides proven congruent, the third side, because of this equation, has to also be congruent. So since these are right triangles, we're actually able to prove that this third side becomes congruent automatically. And now we've got side, side, side. So if you prove a hypotenuse and a leg and a right triangle are congruent, the third side ends up being congruent because of the Pythagorean theorem. So it's like the third angles theorem, but like a third sides theorem now almost. So the third side is going to be congruent. But this only works with a right triangle because the right triangle is the only triangle that has the equation a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So the 2 sides, the 2 small sides, if you square them, add them, are equal to the hypotenuse squared. So that's why it works. All right, so hypotenuse leg is our new one. It only has 2 letters, but we still have to prove 3 things. In the hypotenuse leg, we still have to prove three things. And the three things we have to prove are that we have right angles, then a hypotenuse, and then a leg. So there's still three things to prove in our proofs. Just like we had three sides, two sides and an angle, two angles and a side, two angles and a side. We still have three things, even though there's only two letters there. We still have to prove three things: a right angle, a hypotenuse, and a leg. All right, so let's go ahead and do this proof here. So my given is that angle B is 90 degrees. So that's a right angle. All right, and angle D is 90. And then the last thing that's proven is that AB is congruent to DC. So here's AB, and it's congruent to DC. All right, so let's write down what we have been given. The measurement of angle B equals 90. The measurement of angle D equals 90. And AB is congruent to DC. So that's my given. Now remember, we're going to keep track. So over here, this proves I've got 90-degree angles, which are right angles. So I have proven I've got a right angle. So there's one thing proven. AB and DC. So this side is touching the 90-degree angle, so that's not a hypotenuse, it's a leg. So I've proven that I have a leg that's congruent so far. So now all I have to do is prove the hypotenuses are congruent. And this is the hypotenuse. So down here on this triangle, the hypotenuse is AC. Up here on this triangle, the hypotenuse is AC. So I need to show that AC is congruent to itself, because this AC is the AC, the hypotenuse from this triangle, and this AC is the hypotenuse from this triangle. So AC is congruent to itself. And just like the last set of notes, that's automatic. Of course something is congruent to itself. And like we said, it's like the doctor, he hits your knee, testing your reflexes. It's because it's automatic. So this is the reflexive property, kind of like checking your reflexes. Reflexive property says anything can be congruent to itself. Remember, even though this looks obvious, I have to write this down because I do not prove anything until I see that congruent sign. All right, now, do we have three things? Yes, I've got a right angle. I've got a hypotenuse congruent. I've got a leg congruent. That's what we needed up here, that we have to have right angles, we have to have a congruent hypotenuse, and a congruent leg. So now I can say the two triangles are congruent. So I can say triangle ABC is congruent to triangle CDA. And the reason is HL, hypotenuse leg. All right, last thing. This is a quick set of notes. Which triangle congruence theorem, or theorems, proves the triangles are congruent? So remember, we've got 5 theorems now to work from. Side, 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 angle, side, angle, side, angle, 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 side, hypotenuse, leg. So let's look at this first one. All right, I've got a side here and a side here. That's nice. And one 90-degree angle. Okay, not enough information yet, but there is stuff I can prove based on the diagram. Since this is 90 degrees on this side and this is a straight line right here, I can prove this side is also 90 degrees because this is perpendicular. So that means all angles where the two lines are perpendicular would be 90 degrees. So now I've got a side, and it's like a leg, and 90 degrees. Now, can I prove the hypotenuses are congruent? No, I cannot. There's nothing here that would indicate those are the same. So I can't use hypotenuse leg because I can't prove those. But this is a shared side. So using the reflexive property, I can say that that's congruent to itself. So only mark things that you can prove. All right, and when we prove something, it has to have a reason. So I mark this because of the reflexive property. I mark this because, you could say linear pairs, they have to add up to 180 degrees, or you can say these lines are perpendicular, therefore all right angles are going to be, all the angles made by perpendicular lines are going to be 90 degrees. You have to have a reason. You can't just say, well, it looks like it. Looking like it isn't enough. So on this one, what do we have? Is it hypotenuse leg? No, I don't have the two hypotenuses. But I have a side, an angle, and a side, so this must be side, angle, side. All right, next one. I've got an angle and a side and a side. I've got another side and another side, but nothing else marked. So I've got two things. But again, I've got this shared side in the middle. So by the reflexive property, I can say that one has to be congruent. The diagram has enough information to prove that's true because of the reflexive property. Now what do I have? I've got side, side, side. So this is side, side, side congruence. All right, last one. I've got a side here at 90 degrees. I've got a side here, and nothing. All right, so I've got 3 things on this triangle, but only 2 on this triangle. So is there anything I can prove? Yes. These are vertical angles, so this one also has to be 90. So now let's look at what I've got. Angle, side, side. Oops, can't do that. Angle, side, side is a donkey, and donkeys can't make triangles. But this is a 90-degree angle, and this is the hypotenuse, and this is the leg. So I can use hypotenuse leg because these are right angles. If this wasn't a right angle, this would not work. But since it is a right angle, I can use hypotenuse leg. All right, that's your notes. Congratulations, you are done.